Hey y'all, this is old Jesse. Um, this morning we're going to talk about Proverbs chapter 2, verses 1 through 6. Um, I haven't done a Proverbs in a few days, and well, let's do this. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand fear of the Lord, and find knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom; out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. So, let's think about this a while. First of all, like, what's the point of receiving words and hiding commandments, right? Like, that's not really the point. The point is, like, what's in your noggin, what's in your head. And and hiding that knowledge within yourself is smart, because that means you contain it, you know it very well. But at the same time, it's not true for today, but in times past, or at least not true for today in the United States of America in some places. There's places in the world where Bibles are illegal, okay? Even the knowledge of what God commands us is considered illegal in some places. Korea being one, China. A lot of times, if like an unregulated Bible in China is illegal, and like, and so there's places in the world where Jews and Christians are persecuted, and sometimes that's because atheism rules, and sometimes it's because of generational paganism, or simply because the state wants complete control over all religion and wants to tell the religion what to teach and what words the books they teach out of should say. So, if you receive words and hide your commandments within you, that's the safest place for those commandments to be. No person has control over your thinking except for you. So that's a wise thing. But also, if you have a copy of the Bible, keep one well hidden. Whether that be somewhere in your house or somewhere where you can find it, always have a copy of words of truth with you. And I've got to say, mine is on my cell phone, and so that's not very well hidden, is it? But we're talking about like a legitimate copy, like piece of paper or whatever, whatever it is. That's a wise thing to do, to save the truth, so that not only you can have that, but you can share that with somebody else that needs to believe. Okay. So that thou incline thy ear unto wisdom, and apply thy heart to understanding. Okay, so if you're hiding that knowledge within yourself, you can repeat it inside your head and listen to it. And understand it, and it takes time to develop intelligent, wise thought processes, and that's not it's not a simple thing, and it's not something that a person should try to go fast with. I mean, sometimes some of these things are very simple to understand, and sometimes it takes a number of years from the time you put that information into your head until you finally understand how it works and why. And the practicing of it oftentimes is part of the learning of it. You have to try to understand. If you don't try, then you won't get it. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures. Well, that takes effort, okay? It takes effort. It takes, you have to cry out to God to say, hey, God, I know that I'm stupid. I need knowledge. I need help. I need understanding. You have to pray for it. That's what lifting up your voice for that is. That's prayer. That's saying openly, I don't understand and I need to understand. And it's an admission of lack of wisdom. And it's wise to do so. It might not seem wise at first, because especially if you're in an area, if you're surrounded by individuals that are socially destructive, right? It might not seem wise. But if you perceive that, then you pray while they're absent. Okay? And so the thing about it is you have to try to ask Yahweh for the knowledge, for the wisdom. Ask in Jesus' name. Ask. And you have to seek for it. You have to be actively okay, I want to understand this. And then not only that, but you have to value it enough to want to understand. And because what's happening today is, and this is typical of the whole world, is that if a person believes in atheism, they oftentimes don't consider the wisdom of Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. In most cases, it's just oh yeah, that's all that religious bunk. We don't need none of that no more. That's the attitude that, I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of folks have. And a lot of religious folks are getting that way too, a lot of religious Christians, they just well, we don't need to read the Bible no more. Jesus is all merciful, and Jesus is God, and that's who that we're just gonna get mercy. And that's the thought. And that's a bad thought. Okay? Because that's not what this is saying. This is saying you have to put in effort. You have to understand it. You have to know that Yahweh, He is the God of gods, and Jesus is not the God of gods. Jesus is God's Son. That's wisdom, So, or at least the very beginning of it. So, and it takes a lot of struggle to understand these things, it took me 40 some years before I even could pronounce Yahweh He as the name of God. I wasn't taught that as a young person. I was taught Yahweh. Okay? And there's a lot of vocalism that's messed up with that. And I was taught Jesus. I wasn't taught Jesus, right? But because of my study of Hebrew and Greek, I say things differently now, because that's the way it was initially written and intended to be said. And it's respectful. Okay? So that's that searches for this wisdom as for hidden treasure, right? Those things when I was young, I didn't have the knowledge of, and it was hidden from me, via the stupidity of ignorant religious folks, or the intentional keeping of it from us by destructive individuals. I don't know what. Then shalt thou understand fear of the Lord, and find knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Okay. Then shalt thou understand the fear of Yahweh, and find knowledge of God. For Yahweh giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Okay. Well, we have our source of wisdom. Okay. If you don't want to believe in a God, well, it makes it pretty hard to hear what comes from Yahweh's mouth, doesn't it? So, my suggestion is, if you want to understand wisdom, accept that there is a God in the universe first. Know that Yahweh exists, always has existed. And know that Jesus is his only begotten Son. Okay? So, think about that. And consider what to do with yourself. You know, like, there's a lot of different forms of ideological thought these days, and they're not all good. Okay? The only form of ideological thought that's got any value to it, any value at all, is belief in Yahweh He. And that's the source of wisdom. That's who gave Solomon his wisdom. Solomon didn't just come up with the wisdom. However, Solomon was a man, and he tested the wisdom, and he tested it to his own destruction, right? So that's another lesson all to itself. When you receive words of wisdom, and you incline your ear for it, and you apply your heart to understanding, and you cry after knowledge, and lift up your voice, and seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as hid treasures, right? It doesn't say test any of it. It doesn't say test it to see what it is. It says understand it. Those are different things, right? Because because of Solomon's example, it is possible to test these things to our own destruction, and that's not wise. So my concern with this is that everybody understand that wisdom is a valuable thing, but it's a dangerous thing to test. Wisdom is valuable because it comes from a dark place, and it keeps you from dark places, and from evil and from the bad. And testing it means that you have to wander in the darkness and find what the problem is. And that's really bad. That's terrible for any human being to have to go through. It's awful. So, anyway, that's my thought. Remember, knowledge of Yahweh, the God of gods, is wisdom. And also, knowledge of Jesus, his Son, is also wisdom and knowledge. And it's good. It's good for you. So think about these things, consider it, and have a good morning. All right, bye.